I really love my greenhouse, but there are a few key things that I wish I had known before we went ahead and made the investment. So today I'm going to walk you through everything we did to set up our small greenhouse in our backyard and why indoor growing might be a better option for you. So as we step inside here, I just want you to see if you can spot the problem. It's empty. The reason it's empty is that we encountered a problem with greenhouse growing that was really not an issue when we were starting our seeds indoors.
So to set up the greenhouse, first we added command hooks to get a better seal on the vent and also to help prop the door open. Without the added hooks, the vent and the door were really at the mercy of the wind, so that wasn't great. The next thing we did to heat the greenhouse naturally was to put down a concrete paver base and to fill 2 plastic totes with water to create enough thermal mass to try to collect the sun's heat during the day and release it at night.
If you don't know what thermal mass is, it's just basically a fancy term for keeping the sunlight that comes in to the greenhouse and the heat that brings, keeping it in the greenhouse. So slowly it will release heat through the night. And that's actually why we painted the lids of these totes to be black. They were originally yellow. You can see it's kind of coming off there. And I had done tons of research before we got our greenhouse. I watched a bajillion YouTube videos. My husband's an engineer. He did all of the calculations to try to make sure that we could heat the greenhouse naturally at no extra cost. But what we found is not what we expected. Our nighttime temps are still a little bit too low for the tender seedlings, 39 degrees. You really want it above 50 for things like peppers and tomatoes, which is the whole point of having the greenhouse. And then look at the highs during the day. It gets so warm in here. So not being able to control the temperature of the greenhouse has really been a source of stress and frustration. And stick around, I'm going to show you our indoor setup, why I'm still growing all of our seedlings indoors and how I'm doing that. I also want to show you a few experiments to see if we can get the nighttime temperatures in this greenhouse up to par. Meanwhile, our indoor growing space is thriving. So if you want to get my exact setup for this indoor garden, that will be in the next video. Don't mind the chirping, that's just our baby chicks. Another thing I really love about this setup is that it is totally storable. I can repurpose these shelves and everything in terms of the trays and the humidity domes, it's all stackable. So it goes away. These lights can fold down really small so I can put it away. The greenhouse is very permanent. This only comes out once a year during a particular season in our house. So aside from the practical heating issues, what I wanted to know is, was there a cost benefit for the amount of space that I was getting growing versus growing indoors? Does the greenhouse provide any additional benefits? So as I broke it down, it looked like the 6 grow lights were costing us about $80. Our shelf was about $25. 2 heat mats, $20 for a total of $125. The greenhouse alone cost us
$200.
Plus, we needed extra expenses for the pavers, which were supposed to hold the heat. The totes ran us about $16. The thermometer was another $16. We also added the extra command hooks, the one I showed you, and a command hook for keeping the door open, which keeps it a little bit cooler during the day. We also added tie downs over the top to keep it secure, plus the $25 for the shelf. If the heater at night works a little bit later, the total will run us about
$400
plus the cost of the electricity for heating the space. So next we're going to try 2 experiments to see if we can get the nighttime temperatures up to a reasonable level. And then later in the video, I'm going to break down for you exactly what I think about the benefits and the costs versus growing indoors versus having a greenhouse, and help you decide what's best for you. In terms of cost, this is significantly less than getting an outdoor greenhouse. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you guys have found that you have spent a lot of money on, invested in for your garden, and found like, that wasn't really worthwhile. If you could put it in the comments to help me and our family and help anybody watching this to know, what do you really need to spend on and what don't you need to spend on, because gardening can be
kind of an expensive hobby, but it doesn't have to be. So the first experiment we're going to do is we are going to insulate the north wall with bubble wrap. This is supposed to create more air and trap more of that hot air inside the greenhouse so that it can be released slowly throughout the night, keeping everything a little bit warmer. So the greenhouse is all tucked in for tonight. It is sitting at 77 degrees in here.
So we had a really warm night last night. It was actually 50 degrees. So let's check the thermometer and see how the greenhouse did with the bubble wrap.
So I'm honestly shocked. 52 degrees. That we got 2 degrees warmer for the bubble wrap in here.
I'm honestly shocked. I really didn't think the bubble wrap was going to do anything. So it is nice to know that there is an additional benefit of that project and that experiment that we did. However, we are still going to have low temperature nights. We are going to have some nights where it's 35 degrees. So it's just 2 degrees is just not enough to heat this greenhouse at night if I want to put my tender seedlings out here. Which means it's time for experiment 2. So I'm going to go get dressed and get the equipment we need for that. So in the greenhouse, I have set up experiment number 2.
And it's not plugged in right now because we don't need any heat during the day. We have this heat lamp that we usually use for our chicks, but they are old enough that they don't need it anymore.
So it's time to close up the greenhouse. We're sitting at about 84 degrees right now inside, and we will see how much warmer we can get it in here with an additional electric heat source. All right, here's the moment of truth. Let's see how we did.
Well, our low last night was 50 degrees, which is much warmer than it has been. And it does look like we got a significant bump from the heat lamp.
But it is going to be 35 degrees next week, which is definitely not enough to put seedlings out here. So it looks to me like unless we put an actual heater out here, we just are not going to get the kind of temperatures that we need.
It really comes down to space versus cost. If you have a lot of space outside to add a structure like a greenhouse, maybe that's going to be advantageous to you. If you're looking to use all of your outdoor space for your actual growing beds, you might want to consider something inside. Then again, you might not have a space inside to put a shelf. But I will say that that one shelf that I do have does not take up very much space and is exactly the amount of growing space I have in here with using the totes trying to heat this. Now I could double that space if I take the totes out and bring that shelf down here. That's the same size shelf. So I could double the space. Even if I double the space inside, the cost is still going to be less than my entire greenhouse setup. So that's going to be a consideration for you. How much do you want to spend? Now, I know it's not looking good for greenhouse at this point, but I will say that there are some reasons why you might want to choose a greenhouse anyway. So stick around because I do really want to talk about the stress issue. I don't think people talk about this enough. So when you are growing indoors, your temperatures are fairly well regulated, and the grow lights are not going to be the same amount of light. You're going to get better light outside with your outdoor structure, but your outdoor structure is also at the mercy of the weather. If I don't get out here in time to open the door and open the vent, the temperatures inside this greenhouse can reach upwards of 120 degrees, which is really hot for young seedlings. It's going to dry them out and kill them immediately. And then boom, all your hard work is gone. Same thing at the end of the day. If I don't get out to close it in time to trap the heat in, assuming I can even get enough heat to heat it, right? Because we saw how difficult that can be. And they're freezing. They're too cold. They're going to be stunted or they might even die depending on how frosty it gets outside. So that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of stress to be on the grower. You are very busy or you've got a lot of other responsibilities. Like me, I've got 4 little kids I'm trying to homeschool. I'm an author. I've got a lot of things I'm trying to balance. So having the consistency of the indoor greenhouse is a lot less stressful than the ups and downs of being at the mercy of the weather and making sure that every single day, there's no missed day of opening the door, opening the vents, closing the door, closing the vents. The light is actually maybe a benefit. So outdoors, you're going to be able to get much, much, much better light, which can create healthier seedlings.
So even if I doubled my space inside, the all-in cost is still coming in at $300, which is still less than just the cost of this greenhouse. For me, this is the sunk cost, and I am going to maximize the amount of plants that I can grow. I'm going to keep growing my seedlings and my tender things indoors. Whatever works is going to come out in this space. So I have both. So I've spent all the money, I have maximized the growing potential, and I'm still going to use the greenhouse. And like I said, it is much better for the light. It is much easier during the hardening out process. They're already used to the outdoor light, so that's less of a shock for them when it comes to babying them through that hardening off process, where you give them a little bit of time outside to see how the conditions are and get used to it and kind of acclimate to that before you actually plant them out in your garden. So those are some of the reasons why you might still consider getting a greenhouse. If you want to grow your own food, but you want to do it without wasting your time, wasting your money, that's what I am doing here. Growing food, saving money, and healing at home. So I would love for you to join me. I'd love for you to subscribe and tune in for the next video. I'm going to go over and break down exactly how I turned my office into that growing room. And I'd love for you to subscribe and join us as we build a more self-sufficient life, one seed at a time.